It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
You want something, go get it. Period.
You gotta keep moving, let's keep moving, let's go. Don't quit till you got nothing left.
This is where we have been, this is how we got here, this is who we are.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
You're listening to the Hustle Indie Show, sponsored by FS Houses, where we seek out some of Indie's most hustling people and places to learn about what they do, how they got started, and where they're going. Sit back and enjoy the show.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the 11th episode of the Hustle Indie Show. It is so good to see all your smiling faces that I actually can't see. Ian, how are you doing this lovely afternoon?
Not as good as you. Your haircut looks phenomenal.
I got
and
a
you're all dressed
fresh
up.
Cut.
Oh my
Ooh.
goodness.
For those of you that are watching or listening, we had a guest on episode, I believe, 6, named Matt Jones.
Yes, yeah.
Owner of Wharfley Barbershop. And if you didn't watch that one, you would have known that my haircut gets cut every month at Wharfley Barbershop. So I was fortunate enough to swing back over there, see some lovely faces,
it looks
get
phenomenal.
a fresh haircut. So for those of you that are looking for a good barber, I highly recommend Wharfley Barbershop.
Yeah, no, I get my haircut by my brother's girlfriend, Jess, up in Noblesville, and she does a great job. And I feel like a haircut just really makes you feel a different way. It really does.
Especially on a nice day.
Yes.
Gets that breeze.
Yes,
roll the windows down. Feel like a new girl. I mean, man.
But through this pandemic, haircuts have kind of been tough. And also communication has been a little tough. So today, our interview is actually going to be a Zoom session. So it'll be a little bit different. The audio may sound a little different for those that are listening. And obviously, the visuals will be a bit different. So bear with us through that.
Yeah. Randy, I've known Randy, the guest that we're going to have today, for quite a while. He's got some pre-existing conditions, so out of respect for him, we wanted to make sure that we had this meeting in the safest way possible. So bear with us as we have a Zoom meeting. I think it'll go pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as always, we want to thank you to our sponsor, FS Houses, for sponsoring yet another episode of the Hustle Indie Show. FS Houses is a local real estate brokerage who specializes in anything real estate, from property management, investments, traditional sales, or anything else real estate related that you might have questions about. They bring a professional and yet personal experience to help guide you through the confusing world of real estate. FS Houses now also offers marketing services such as photo, video, website creation, and much, much more. You can find out anything about FS Houses on their website, fshouses.com. Again, that is fshouses.com. Thank you so much, FS Houses.
Thank you, FS Houses. Can't thank them enough. Every episode is a joy. Every episode is a gift. We are so thankful that we're able to do this.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're cranking them out left and right. All thanks to FS Houses.
Let's get right to it.
Awesome. Well, today we have quite the guest with us, a dear friend of mine, someone that I have some experience learning from firsthand. We have Randy Clark with us, who is an Amazon best-selling author and a leadership guru. He teaches leadership techniques and classes and stuff to local businesses and individuals around the area. So welcome, Randy, to the Hustle Indie Show.
You bet. And Brandon, I'm going to start by saying you've taught me things.
Have I really?
Well, you know that.
Oh.
We've shared that. So you have. Yeah. I appreciate your input.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us on the show. I'm excited to learn more about you. Maybe
Very
some things
excited.
that I haven't heard, and frankly, some things other people might haven't heard either. So,
Okay.
All right, Randy, let's jump right into it. So who are you? Where did you come from? And what do you do?
Oh my gosh. Okay. How much time do we have?
as long as,
As
you,
long as
need.
you need.
As long as you need.
Okay. Randy Clark. What I do now, which is where we'll get to, is I do leadership training. I can be found at randyclarkleadership.com. I write, I blog a lot. I blog for a couple of other companies. And I'm old, so I've done a lot of things, right? What's interesting is somebody was recently talking about reinventing themselves, right? And I took a look at that, and I've been in the workforce for more than 50 years, and I've reinvented myself about every 10 years or so. So, gosh, I was VP of operations of a home remodeling company that we took from 3 million to 50 million and made it into the top 50 by volume home remodeling companies in America.
Wow.
At the same time, won the Central Indiana Better Business Bureau Torch Award, which is for customer service, 3 years consecutive, which nobody had ever done. And nobody in home remodeling had ever done that, but we tried to treat customers right. Before that, I was a car nut, and I loved Volkswagens and Peugeots, and I went to sell cars at Volkswagen North, who sold Volkswagen, Peugeots, and Fiats. It's no longer there. The place is gone. Before that, I ran Tommy Can shoe stores. Probably never heard of them. And at 20 years old, I went to their home office in Massachusetts and joined their marketing department back then, which was all these fish screens. You don't know what that is either. Anyway, it was really old fashioned stuff. So, and that was, I dropped out of college. I got married. Always had this intention to go back. And then I think one of the things that happened, I was out in Worcester, Massachusetts at Melville Shoes headquarters. And I've got this merchandising marketing position, and everybody around me has their bachelor's. And I'm going, okay, why do I need this? So it was interesting. So later that became a bit of a challenge. So after the home remodeling, I got out of the home remodeling business in 2008 to start my own leadership training program. Offered that. And I was amazed at how many places didn't have any management development programs. They just threw people in the deep end, sink or swim. So I started writing my first book, which is the New Manager's Workbook, a crash course in effective management in 2008. I learned a lot about writing because I didn't publish it until 2015.
Whoa.
That's how long it took me to get it down. My most recent book that I wrote, which is You Can't Talk Stuff Done, it took me 6 months to write. So I learned from it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And my last position, I was doing the leadership training, and I did leadership training for TKO Graphics, much like I did for Berger Hargis. And then they had a position coming up where they decided that they wanted to get into social media. They wanted to blog, asked me if I could do that. And I said, sure. I didn't know anything.
You didn't know anything?
I didn't know a darn thing about any of it. I used to struggle to put out one blog post a week.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. But we built that up. That blog I still write for from home, 1099. That blog gets about 6,000 hits a month. So
wow.
Out of this little print company in Plainfield. So it works pretty good. So that's where I was. That's where I am now. And that's how many reinventions were there? 5?
Quite a few. Quite a few.
Yeah.
So, and you started off jumping into blogs knowing nothing. And if I'm not mistaken, you've written a book about blogs now, correct?
I did. And wow. And it's how to stay ahead of your business blog forever. And what's interesting is my management workbook, that first book, Brendan, you've been through it. What's it based on?
Managing properly.
Yeah, but where did I come up with the information?
A lot of your experiences, right?
And a lot of my
failures.
You bet. So it's based on, I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
But guess what the blogging book is based on?
Same thing. A lot of your mistakes.
Yep, it sure is. So I think that somebody asked me who makes the best, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not advisor, but like somebody that works with a drug addict, a counselor, somebody that's been there and done that.
Sure.
I think make the best.
Going from that, what would you feel like your biggest learning area or your biggest mistake that you made that you learned from when it comes to these blogging? And because you went from knowing nothing to then writing a book from it, and from an outsider's perspective, it's like, okay, how am I supposed to, trust something you've written? What would you feel like the biggest lesson you've learned was going through that?
You bet. One of the things that inspired me to write the book was a good friend had just hired her first employee. She'd been a solopreneur, and she's a good writer. She teaches down at IU Bloomington business writing and some stuff, so she can write, right?
Yeah.
And she said, man, I just can't get ahead of my blog.
Mm.
And now I've got some time because I've got an employee. And I go, well, tell me about your process. She said, well, I pencil in 2 hours to sit down and write, and then I go to the computer. And I said, well, you're going to have writer's block from doing that. So, and I still write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blogs a week, right?
Wow.
I'm not bragging. I don't have writer's block. I never have writer's block. Oh, and that's not counting. I write a piece of fiction a week and a piece of humor a week that I'm putting together for a book.
Wow. Wow.
But the way I do that is, first of all, what you do is you pick topics. So give me an idea of a company, a company that does
video marketing company.
Okay, a company that does video marketing company. So what they want to think about is who their target marketing is. I don't know if they're wanting to do residential or real estate or weddings, or if they're doing small business, but let's say small businesses, right? So think about what's interesting to your small business and pick 3 or 4 topics. So it could be talking about new products. It could be showing your process. It could be talking about why video is so important nowadays. So let's say you have those 3 topics. Now under those topics, and that's the first place you do, you start putting ideas.
Yeah.
So if I have under why video is so important today, I might put a post together using some maybe HubSpot stats about how many people look at video. I could have another one about video on Facebook and what it means, right?
Yeah.
So now I've got topics and I've got ideas, and I put those into an editorial calendar, which can be as simple as that could be an editorial calendar. Okay.
Sure.
Now I use Outlook and I use Google Calendar, but so you got topics and ideas. The next thing that you do is you take your topic and do a little research. Just Google it. And I will see what other people have written about it. I never steal something from them. I might use some and link to them and attribute if I really like what it is, and quote them. But I'll look for ideas. I'll look for facts and figures. So now I've got a topic. I've got an idea. I've researched it. Now I write it. And here's a big key. When you write it, turn spell check off, turn everything off. Just write it. Just write it. Yes. Writing and editing are 2 different sides of the brain. So when you write and edit, you're switching back and forth and you're stopping the creative flow.
Really? Huh.
Turn spell check off.
Wow.
Now, when you're done, turn it back on, right?
Just go and publish an unedited piece.
Yeah. So I write it. I let it sit for at least 24 hours. And then I edit it. My editing process is I read it from start to finish. I used to read it aloud, but now I have my laptop do that under the editor stuff. And I'll listen to it, right? I read it from the bottom up, one sentence at a time. Gives you a whole different perspective. At one time, I used editors, and for my books, I've used editors, but I used Grammarly, love Grammarly.
Yeah.
And I use Yoast.
Yep.
I've got Yoast on WordPress. Before you start your blog, I recommend people with a business to put out at least 1 blog a week. 6 is better, but one blog a week. And you pick a day and you pick a time that you're going to publish that blog. But before you publish the first one, you write 6.
Gotcha.
You get 6 weeks ahead, and it takes all of the pressure off of you. That may be the most important thing that I've said about blogging today.
I think that carries over into other things too. I mean, I've heeded that advice from you personally, and I mean, this podcast we're recording. I think this episode is 6 weeks out, 5 or 6 weeks out, and from someone who
well, they're not going to see this for 6 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't leave us, please.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think I'm funny. It gets me in trouble all the time. Brendan, sorry for interrupting.
No, you're fine. No, but like, I mean, for someone who does the bulk of that editing and the work behind the things the scenes that people don't see, it does relieve a lot of that pressure. And having that gap, I mean, not only allows for that pressure relief, but say there's a week where I'm sick or there's a holiday where we can't record and life happens. It's nice to have that buffer in between.
I haven't done a podcast, but I'm going to guess that it's similar. One of the things that happens with blogs is that it gets pushed aside.
Mm-hmm.
And people are excited about it at first, but how many times have you all jumped on somebody's blog and see that nothing's been posted for 4 months?
Yeah.
So the other thing you have to do is make a commitment. And that's why I said pick a day and a time and just be religious with it.
Mm-hmm.
Pick that day and time, get ahead before you even start, stay ahead, pick the day and time and post it. Because when you don't, the exception becomes the rule. And blogs aren't urgent. You're not going to lose a customer today.
Sure.
It's not a fire you have to put out. So it's easy to go, oh, well, we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm. I think that carries over to, the most recent book you've written, You Can't Talk Stuff Done. That mentality kind of fuels into that. And I guess other things too. Be religious about it. Make sure you have the discipline to actually create action instead of just talking about it.
Well, you've been involved in some meetings that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
What's my goal of a meeting?
Take one thing away from the meeting and take care of it.
Yeah, almost every meeting I do, because for years I just talked about stuff and had meetings and then nothing was done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and it's not always successful, but right from the beginning of any meeting or seminar or a workshop, I let people know my goal is that they pick something and then they commit to doing it, take action from it.
Yeah.
And then if it's somebody that I'll try to follow up if possible. I can't always follow up because I'm not right there with people.
Mm-hmm.
So so currently right now, you're an author as well as a leadership management. Are you located in the Indianapolis area, or do you do most of these things remotely now, or how does that look like for you?
I live right at the edge of Speedway.
Okay.
So I can hear the cars in my backyard.
Sure.
I have a little hill in the woods at the back of me. Right now, I'm doing everything remotely, even local. So
okay.
I'm I'm healthy, but I have some chronic illnesses and my age put me in a high risk for the COVID. So
Gotcha.
Great news today. Did you guys see that, Pfeiffer?
No.
What happened?
They have a vaccine.
No way.
It's a 90% positive results.
Cool.
The FDA was looking for 50%.
Wow.
It'll be another month of some testing, and then of course there's the logistics of getting it out.
Sure.
There's a couple other companies really close to things too.
That's really cool. So moving forward, then you're all virtual now. Do you anticipate soon or later or never transitioning back into coming in and actually meeting with people?
I don't know. I hope so. I like meeting with people. With a vaccine and medications, I think it'll be possible. But I also think that and this is so overworked, but new normal. Things have changed,
Yeah.
So
in what ways has that affected your end of the leadership? Have you had to adjust and learn a lot of new things, or was it pretty seamless?
No, I use Google Meeting a lot. Zoom. I've done stuff with FaceTime, so I had to learn to play with that. I learned, for one thing, I learned to shut my drapes in this room behind me. You see the light from the top of the drapes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's interesting things too. I've got a group that we call Friend Up, and it organically began October of 2010.
Oh, wow.
There's a couple hundred people in it. And I had put out a blog post, and I sent an email to a few friends saying, hey, like this, share it, give me a comment on it, blah, blah, blah. And one of the people in one of these strings said, I haven't met this person and that person I'd like to meet. So we met on a Thursday evening. Happened to be a place downtown that had 50-cent beer and quarter tacos, I think. There was 6 of us. And I came in and said, hey, since you guys helped me, let's go around the table and you tell me where you need help and let's talk about it. So since then, we met every third Thursday for, oh my gosh, for 10 years. It was the 10th
Wow.
anniversary this October. And we started meeting some Saturday brunches as well. When COVID came, we started doing the meetings virtually. And eventually people, I'm going to write about this sometime. I call it Zoom fatigue. They got tired of it. We're not having the meetings right now.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss that, but it's because people had like, I've got one of the other administrators on our private Facebook page is a marketing person at Eli Lilly. She works from home and does Zoom meetings all day long. You know? And at first she said, "Oh, I forgot we were having it." And then she called me because I'm old, so I still take phone calls. And said, "Randy, I can't take any more meetings." And I go, Beth Ann, I get that. I get it.
Interesting. Have you seen, has it been for those that you are teaching and talking to and meeting with, have they taken well to the virtual, or have they struggled, or do you see any difference at all?
I think a lot of it depends on who you have on the other end helping you do the logistics of it or setting it up. So like that one group, Burger Harger, there's somebody there that does a really good job of helping set that up. So Burger Hargis. I said Harger. Harger. So I know, what do you think?
What do I think? I think it definitely, it's different in terms of the environment, but I think in a time where it would have been easy just to shut the door and completely stop doing it, the ability to still meet virtually, that was far more significant in value than trying to preserve actually meeting in person. Like the fact that we can still meet and have these conversations is worth a lot more than not having the conversations and not having it in person. So I think the value is still there significantly.
So, and if we take Burger Hargis for an example, and you can correct me or disagree with me, I think that we still make an impact and people take commitments and work on those commitments. I don't think it's as much or as effective as in person.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of like oomph that's lost in like the weight of some of the things that might be said. It's harder to feel the weight of that virtually. But yeah, I still think, I see it firsthand that there is still that action happening.
And the last guest we had on, she had actually mentioned one of the most important parts about having an in-person meeting is after the meeting is done, the post-meeting meeting where everybody, it's not official, but everybody that's there gets to sit around, talk about what just happened, and having it on Zoom, it does limit that and kind of eliminate that whole feature. Instead of just ending a call or ending the meeting, you're actually still in person, and being able to talk about it is such a valuable addition. And that is something that you will always kind of miss out when it comes to these things.
So could you add that to a Zoom or a virtual meeting?
I think I've seen, so we just talked to a company about a software. There's softwares now popping up left and right that are trying to replicate this online meeting thing. And I think they call it like rooms or something. There's some softwares that have like breakout meetings that you can do within a big meeting and come back and stuff like
Google
that.
Meeting has that.
Yeah. So I think to an extent you can replicate it. I don't know if we'll ever be able to fully replace that casual conversation following or leading up to a meeting, just because it's different, or at least for the time being. I don't know if people will start to get comfortable and find a way to incorporate that. But like if we get on a meeting, a sales meeting, like with a potential camera company or security company, and we get off of that meeting, we can just sit around and talk about, hey, this went really well. These are the things we're considering. This price is okay. Things that we wouldn't talk about with that person in the room necessarily. Now, it's not necessarily detrimental to them, but just conversations that need to be had more privately. I don't know if there will ever be a full replacement for that, but I think we as humans will adapt and try to create it. And I think we will be successful to some extent, at least.
One of the early meetings with that friend up group that we're not meeting anymore. And that's was a real loose thing where we just talk and go around the table and say, hey, where do you need help? And then we brainstorm and jam on it. But at the end, we would just talk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was still maybe 8 or 9 of us or 10 of us and just chatting. Hey, so what's going on? How's the garden?
Yeah.
Yeah. So besides being an author, you have this leadership program, and we've kind of hit on it all around it already. Can you kind of dive into detail more like what it is, what you do, and what it does for those that you're serving?
You bet. Most of my training is based on my first 2 management books, which I mentioned, the New Manager's Workbook and Effective Crash Course in Effective Management, and the Manager's Guide to Becoming a Leader. Now, I know I'm straying here a little bit. I can, if somebody has a particular concern or problem, customize training for that situation and individual. But for example, in the first book, so I can get my headphone out of the way here. Where's one of those? In that one, if we look inside here, we see under the table of contents. I don't know if you can see it, but there's 13.
Yep.
Oh, I'd like to call them modules, but I've never taped them as well, which is something I need to do. And they're from, and I'll go to a group. I'll give them this book. I say, hey, if you want to do this, let's get them for all your people. But it's got recruiting and hiring, training, conducting meetings, motivation, team building, employee review, silo busting, behavioral modification. And I'll say, and it says it in the forward of this book isn't necessarily meant to be read from start to finish. For example, if you've got a behavioral problem that you need to work on, well, then you switch down to chapter 9 and look at that.
Gotcha.
So then what I'll do is have whoever I'm meeting with pick the chapters they want to start with.
Right. Okay.
The chapters, the modules are put together with not only how it is, why you do it, but with action plans and with forms that can be, somebody can make into their own. And usually each of those takes about an hour.
So then what do you see from a leadership or someone who teaches leadership and action and management and growth to companies? What are some of the things that you see that are evident in various different types of businesses? Like what is lacking most that you see happening from business to business?
Oh gosh, again, how much time do we have? Some of the real common things: communication, and a couple of things on communication. It's interesting when I do seminars with open group of people from different places. I'll ask, "What are your concerns?" And if given the chance, I'll go around to people ahead of time. And communication is always the top one. So the first thing is, and this is especially important today with remote workers, is what media we use. Last year, I was doing a management development training session, a series, with a company on the west side of Indianapolis and with their frontline managers. And I put out a little questionnaire form, and it had like 8 forms of communication, email, text, social media, etc. And you rated it, ranked it 1 to 5, 1 being yes, that's number 1, 5 never, or 5 only with my mom, right? And what was interesting is there was a sales manager and then 2 outside salespeople that were remote, right? And the sales manager's number 1 preference on communication was email. Guess what it was with the 2 younger salespeople that he tried to manage through email, or what it wasn't?
Texting?
I'd say texting.
Yeah, and it wasn't email.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they admitted that sometimes they just went through and watched it all out because there was so much spam, didn't look at any of it, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't pass a judgment I didn't tell them what they needed to choose.
Right.
Told them they need to choose and they need to talk about this. And this had been going on for a couple of years, but nobody had ever talked. A good friend of mine, Mandy Welch, with her company, We Are Recruiters. It's a recruiting firm. It's one of the first things she does with new customers. How do you like to communicate? What media do you like to use? It's a big problem with all kinds of people. And then people misuse the media. For example, is email a place for a long, multi-point conversation?
Yeah, definitely not.
No. And if somebody hears this and doesn't think so, I want you to try something. Send an email to a friend with 2 questions and see what happens. Do you know what happens most of the time?
First question answered.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean,
Yeah,
we're so used to scanning. Oh yeah, I read that blog. What'd you read? Oh, the subheads.
Yeah.
The second thing on communication is, and this can be either face-to-face or remote, is checking communication. I remember a production manager coming to me and saying, man, I'm going over this stuff with my people. I give them all the information. I check to make sure they got it, and they still don't have it. They're not doing it. And I said, well, Luke, tell me how you check to see if they got it. Well, I look at them and I say, you understand? You got it?
Yeah.
What are they going to say?
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. So I said, try this. Okay. He was a real straight ahead personality. So I told him to say, okay, good. Repeat it back to me. Then that's probably too harsh for me. I'd probably say something like, hey, I know I don't communicate well sometimes. Can you share this back to make sure I gave it to you correctly?
Yeah.
Whatever fits your own personality.
Right.
So
right.
what was interesting then is he found out that they didn't really know when he started asking. And then he came to me and said, man, sometimes they're still not doing it well. A, that's why you got to watch them. And B, remember back when we first met and you said people should be adults and just do their job? Do you remember what I said to you, Luke? You said, yeah, you said, then why do we need you? Because you got to observe and you got to watch and you got to help and you got to train. So, yeah.
So how do you go about resolving? So with that issue, or earlier said, the 2 of them preferred text, 1 of them preferred email. How do you go in there and facilitate that? And how would you solve that problem between them? Is it more of you letting them solve it themselves?
I make them aware of the problem.
Okay.
I tell them that they have to talk about this, but it's their decision.
Right.
If they're going to say the manager wants email, you need to watch his emails, that's fine.
Gotcha.
If they're going to say the guys want text and the manager says he's going to do that with you, but they just have to communicate.
Yeah.
About communication.
Interesting. So how does that bleed over into being an author? Do you take, now as someone who has not read your books, and I would assume a lot of the audience, is just now finding out about you, do you take a lot of your experiences and put those in your books themselves for like examples, or how do you tie that into your everyday work?
Yeah, you bet. The story I just told about the sales and the sales manager, that's in the second book.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the second book was a lot based on people who bought the first book, did seminars and used it, and then said, yeah, but, or what next?
Right.
Or this came up.
Yeah.
Speaking to Indianapolis and the surrounding area specifically, how, or do you feel like if it has, how has it impacted the way that you go about doing your leadership training, your writing, your advice giving? Does Indianapolis play a specific role in that? Like, what about Indianapolis shapes or molds what you say, how you teach people, and things that follow that?
First of all, I think I'm just so fortunate Indianapolis has such a great community. There are so many good people here and so many resources and so many experts at all kinds of things. And I've been able to meet tons of people. So, I don't know, Brenda.
No answer?
There's a lot of good people. See, I started working from home last October. I left a full-time position, started working 10 hours a week for that company because I was tired of coming into the office. It was time. And then I worked for a couple other companies blogging and worked with a couple of companies doing the leadership virtually. So not that much has really changed for me after COVID, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I do miss like coming to Burger Harvest in person.
Yeah.
That was once every 2 weeks for an hour. You know? So
you seem to have adapted pretty well to all of these new circumstances. And you said that, throughout your career, especially being an author, that you haven't, you've been blessed to not experience writer's block. So what keeps you inspired to keep writing at such an incredible pace, with everything that you're writing, the blog posts, the books, as well as keeping this leadership program going? What inspires you to do that and not, get tired of it or not have stuff continually come into your mind? Because that is, from a creative standpoint, something very hard to do at that, breakneck pace that you're at.
Well, the first thing is I go back to the things that are kind of outlined from the blogging book, which is have a plan.
Yeah.
So, for example, right now I had put off writing fiction. I like to write fiction.
Gotcha.
So in July, I made a commitment. Did you ever hear of Ben Franklin's 5-hour rule? Supposedly, Ben Franklin had a 5-hour rule. So 5 hours in a week, 1 hour in an evening for 5 days, education. Reading, studying, research, flying a kite with a key on it, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of took off from that, which I didn't even think about it at the time, but I started the thing that I'm calling 90. And it's 90 minutes a day. And it's 30 minutes practicing playing keyboards. It's 30 minutes of exercise. And it was 30 minutes of writing fiction. And I wanted to write short stories. A short story compilation is usually about 40,000 words. And do you know what flash fiction is? It's really short, 1,000 to 1,200 words.
Gotcha.
And what I'm writing is primarily science fiction. And what I'm hoping to do is I call it gotchas, where I hook you at the end and you didn't see it coming.
Gotcha. Yeah.
One of the first ones I wrote was about a single mom going through the pandemic, right? And all the struggles she was having and trying to talk to her kids and telling her son why he couldn't go out and play with the kids and blah, blah, blah. And then you get to the end, she goes, I just hope things are better in 1919 next year. So, yeah. So anyway, make a long story short, so I've been doing that since July. I do 30 minutes a day. It ends up I'm able to write one, edit one, and get it. I've got a little blog platform for that on Medium. I'm now at 24 stories, 25,614 words. Wow. And I will have enough for the book if I at this pace at the end of January.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And 2 of the stories that are in here, I edited and worked on, but I originally wrote them in 2008.
Oh, wow.
And they've just sat there because I didn't know what to do with it. So I'm going to go back to your question. You need a plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has there ever been a point in time where you felt like you just needed a break, like a pause and a relax? Or do you find that throughout while you're still grinding?
Yeah. Everybody needs that, right? And to me, it's not a grind. So, I mean, I've got more and more part-time. When I was VP of operations for the large home remodeling company, people will say this, I'm not exaggerating. I worked about 80 hours a week. I worked 7 days a week. I was either out on a sales call with somebody because I never rode alone. If I did go on a sales call, even as VP, I was at a trade show somewhere. I was at an installation. So as a matter of fact, right before I left the job, we're sitting in the backyard of this house and my wife looks at me and says, do you know you've just worked 68 days in a row?
Wow.
Whoa.
I knew I had a problem when she was keeping track of it.
Yeah.
So when I took the job, so that's when I left and started my leadership. And then I took the job at TKO. TKO was 40 hours a week. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Wait a second. I don't work Saturday and Sunday. And think about that. Before that, I ran retail businesses and I was in car sales and assistant manager of a car. I worked all the time. So to me, this is like, now I'm uber part-time.
Yeah.
I work 2 hours a day for one company, a couple hours a day for myself. When I do a meeting for Burger Hargis, it's funny. You know, people think it's an hour meeting. I've usually got 2 or 3 hours prepping the meeting. So now if it's meetings I've done before, so Burger Hargis has helped me do that. I've done meetings for you guys I can use for other people. Now I've got the slides and everything. So.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yes,
Yeah.
you did. Have a plan. Yeah, have a plan. So looking back on what you've done, do you feel like you made a mistake by working that hard? Do you feel like you should have maybe enjoyed your time a little more, like with your family or your just own personal time? Or do you have any major regrets when it comes to that?
Yeah. Yeah. Going down that path of regret can be dangerous, can it be? But I'll turn it around this way. I didn't figure that out till I was about 50, right?
Right.
I would tell people to, when they're younger, to try to figure out sooner than I did that you don't
Gotcha.
need to work that much. So yeah, I missed a lot. I missed ball games and I missed a lot. So.
Gotcha.
So tying it all together, I mean, you've dipped your toes in virtually every realm of business, every realm of work. How does all of that tie together to where you are today? Aside from the experiences, like obviously all of those have been experiences that you've been able to learn from and share with other people moving forward. But what ultimately puts you in the position to where I want to teach people how to get better? I want to teach people how to become better leaders.
Oh, well, that's easy. It's in particular, I've always wanted to do that. It's funny. I've never really been money motivated. Wait, you worked all those hours being VP of operations. Yeah, but it wasn't because of the money. I've got a story I've shared with you before on that, Brendan, that I might tell you, but it was because I really wanted to help people and I wanted to be part of a team. And I love recognition. I'm not hard to manage.
Yeah.
So that home remodeling company, the only person over me was the owner of the company, the president. And we're talking one day about motivation, and he's talking about money. And I said, listen, Jack, that's not his name. I'm really not that money motivated.
Yeah.
I'm motivated by, again, being part of the team, by helping people, by recognition. At that time, that company was called The Help Company. It was my idea. Because employees and customers. It was home remodeling, but we didn't use subcontractors. We hired employees.
Wow. Okay.
And we hired people of character and then taught them how to do the job, and we did a 401k, and then we became an ESOP. And so, and he looked at me and said, bonuses don't mean that much, Jay. And I go, not really. He took me off of bonuses for a year.
Wow.
I never said that again.
Yeah.
So then when I went out and started working with companies, I looked and my gosh, just again, people were being put into management positions and not given the tools to succeed. I'd see things like, well, you asked him to hire somebody. Did you do some training about hiring? He said, yeah, we got an application with questions. I gave it to him. Okay.
So
that's how I was trained. I was trained. It was the idea that my manager, by me watching him, that's how I would be trained. I guess you would call that osmosis training.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like that natural desire to lead, help, grow, and just teach people has been the driving force behind why you do all of the work that you've done. And you've just found a way that you can directly do that with no barriers in the way. All you do is you meet with people to help teach them, train them, help them become better leaders and become better people.
Right. But I don't want you to misunderstand. When I was a younger manager, I was a terrible manager. So I haven't always been driven like that until I saw the light,
Yeah.
You've heard me share some of the stories, like tackling a salesperson in a parking lot. I did that. Are you kidding me? So when I say this is a lot from my mistakes, it was a couple of years ago. We were at a restaurant and bar where there was a birthday party for somebody that was really popular with the place that I used to work 30 years ago. And I'm sitting there across from one of the people that used to be on my team.
Yeah.
And they asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, I've been working on leadership training and I wrote a book. She goes, oh, she said, really? What is it? And I go, well, it's the new manager's workbook, a crash course in effective management. Here's what she did. And that was deservedly so, because that time I wasn't a very good manager.
Yeah. Interesting. So you said that you're not money driven. You prefer, like the recognition and the satisfaction of, the results of your work. So what are some of like your feel good stories? What are some of the best or one of the best, like you've turned a company or a team around? Give us kind of a little look at that. What does that look like?
There's some stories at Burger Hargis, and you weren't there at first, but there was I think there's been some big changes with what they've done with the way they look at helping their people. So I just night and day it's landscaping, and that's tough because you have people that are, laid off when there's no business. And I mean, just, it's a tough business, but they've really worked at being good to their people. I mean, because it's good people there anyway, right?
Sure.
I think back things like the home remodeling company. I was VP of operations. The vice president of installation had a severe stroke. He couldn't work. He never worked again. We had nobody there to take over, so I went in and took over. And this is a couple of stories, but I don't know how to install siding and windows and gutters and roofing. But I recognize some people, two guys that have their own company now. One was a service technician. The other one was a siding installer. But this guy was a window installer. But as a window installer, if there was a siding job in the area, he had grown up in siding, he'd stop by and see how they were doing, if they needed help and stuff, not getting paid, just on his own.
Right.
And there was another guy that was also a service person. Well, those three guys, the two guys that started the company, one ended up being the vice president of installation 3 years later, and I started a management development program with him. The other guy ended up being over siding. And the other service guy, who at the time had just gone through bankruptcy, his oldest daughter had a drug problem. They adopted their granddaughter that lost their home. He bought a house. It was those are the kinds of things that mean something, He was able to turn his life around. So stories like that.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about specifically before we wrap it up?
Did you see the stock market today?
I haven't seen it at all.
My investments are up quite a bit.
Yeah. But the high for this year was in April. It was 29,551. Before this meeting, I came in, it was 29,663. So that's 0.04% higher than the high of the year. So whatever your high on your investments was of the year, you're slightly above those.
Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a good day. I periodically have been checking it. So
Yeah, I'm not obsessed with it or anything. I'll give you this. I pace that. This is a really interesting thing you can do. I'll give you an example. I will pace my book sales on a monthly basis. I will go into Amazon and see how many books have been sold month to date. So let's say we're 10 days in and I've sold 100 books. Right? So how many books have I sold a day?
10 a book, 10 a day.
Now, if it's November and it's 30 days, if I continue that pace, how many will I sell for the month? 300. Okay.
My math.
So if the pace starts dropping off, I can look at it and say, oh, I need to do more marketing. I need to put this out on Facebook or Twitter more. I need to buy an ad. And you can apply this to almost anything in life. You can look at it, and you don't pace it just to see, okay, where I'm going to end up. You pace it to see what you need to do to end up where you want to be. I will have minimums that I want to hit. And if it's below that, then I start working on, I got to build this up today.
Interesting.
Cool.
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah. If there are people out there watching or listening that maybe have questions for you or are interested in utilizing your services or learning more about what you do, what is the best way for people to get in contact with you?
RandyClarkLeadership.com.
Perfect.
No E.
RandyClarkLeadership.com.
Simple.
LARK.
And we'll link that below in the show notes. Thank you, Randy, for joining us in this meeting.
Much.
It was awesome to hear more about you and what you do.
Great questions, guys.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the Hustle Indie Show.
Thank you, Randy.
You guys.